Welcome to the Mixed Race Belonging podcast, where we explore the intersection of mixed identity and belonging through the lens of somatics and personal and collective liberation to help you heal your belonging wounds and reconnect with your innate wholeness through relationships, new experiences, and activism. I'm your host, Raina LaGrand, an embodiment coach for mixed race people with a background as a trauma therapist, yoga teacher, and health educator. The tools and insights I share with you here are the approach that has not only helped me heal my belonging wound, but also helped me help my mixed race clients do the same. We all need something good to belong to right now. Relationships and spaces where we feel safe, held, seen, heard, and dignified. Thanks for being here, and let's get started with today's show. Hello. Welcome back to the podcast. I cannot believe that it's December, it's almost the end of the year, and we have surpassed 10 episodes of the podcast. This is episode 11, and truthfully, I just have so much content. I could talk for hours and hours and hours and episodes and episodes and episodes. And I hope that what I've been creating has been helpful for you. I have heard from some folks that it has been, so that makes me happy. And don't forget that in the show notes, there is a link to a survey where you can answer some questions I have for you about your experience with belonging, and also let me know what you want to hear on the podcast. So today, I'm going back to a question that I got in a workshop years ago that has been, I think it's come up so many times and is really important as we are working towards belonging, reaching for belonging, building relationships, putting ourselves out there, and kind of working to really be with and discern some of our wounds from what's really happening. And that question is, am I triggered, or is this a red flag? How can I tell the difference in an interaction with someone, whether I'm just triggered or whether it's really a red flag? And the most common answer that I give is it depends. It really does. It depends on a lot of things, and I just want to normalize that. I want to encourage you that you can learn to discern more accurately, and also that normalize that it takes time. It takes time for us to fine-tune our sensor and confidently determine with clarity what's happening and whether it's cool or not. So I'm going to walk you through some information that has been helpful for folks when it comes to this question. And so let's get into it. So I think maybe the best question we can ask ourselves when we're trying to decide if we're triggered is this: does this feel familiar? When we explore whether something feels familiar, when we ask ourselves that question, we are exploring the possibility that the emotion, the reaction, whatever impulses or urges we're having that are coming up are rooted in memory. And now the memory might not be a vivid one. Memories aren't only images that we see in our minds and in our dreams. Memories can also show up as familiar feelings, sensations, smells, behaviors, and more. And really what I'm talking about here is flashbacks, emotional flashbacks. And these flashbacks, again, rather than being vivid images and memories, are more implicit. They're not explicit, they're more implicit. So it's that familiar, ooh, this feels familiar, this smells familiar, but I can't place it. Implicit memories are little slivers of memory. They lack the depth and the chronology that often come with those more explicit conscious memories. And they aren't all necessarily related to trauma. They can be positive, ooh, that smells like something. Oh, I know, it reminds me of the meal my grandma used to make. But implicit memories are also really common when it comes to trauma and the difficult things that we've been through. And because of that, because they can be connected to trauma and stressful experiences, they can generate a sense of urgency and like overwhelm in our bodies. So the the memory might come up through emotion, sensation, or something, and then it might compel you to do something to mitigate that situation ASAP. So that might be like, oh, like so and so looked at me a certain way or said a certain thing, I'm going to clap back or I'm going to run away, right? Like a fight or flight kind of response, or oh my God, I'm frozen, I don't know what to do, and I'm sort of spinning and ruminating in my head. This could also be where a sort of appeasement response comes up, where you give in and you do whatever you think the other person wants you to do, or whatever will keep you in connection or keep you from harm. And these responses are procedural memories. So there's the implicit memory of like, oh, the sort of initial trigger, right? And then there's the procedural memory of here's what I do when I feel this way or when I feel this sensation. And so another question that I think is good to ask in addition to like, is this familiar? Does this feel familiar? Is how old do I feel? And sometimes you will get some data that you actually feel quite young, which is a good sign that there is some element of like being triggered coming up here, and that there's a part of you who needs support, care, and some sense of safety. So, what is most important to be in the practice of is pausing. And I'm going to probably say this so many times during this episode, but pausing, slowing down, and to give yourself the space to explore what you're feeling and what kind of support you need. Yeah. So, and I know that pause is not easy. This is something that I actually have clients practice in session and outside of session when they're not in like the most stressful, overwhelming situation, because the more you can practice it when you're not under direct stress and threat, the easier it's going to be to recall in the moment when it does feel like your back's against the wall. So, the next piece here that I want to talk about is safety. So, beyond exploring the familiarity of the feeling, it's important and can be helpful to discern whether the environment or the interaction that you're in is safe, unsafe, or safe enough. I want to note that all relationships, even the good ones, can trigger us. And this is because they bring all of our insecurities, past experiences, our hopes and dreams to the surface. And we are vulnerable and waiting to see if we are accepted and if we are worthy of belonging in the other person's eyes. And when we live with the impacts of traumatic stress, it's really common that our gut sense gets confused. So you might be drawn to things that are actually unsafe for you, like drugs or risky sexual behaviors, or people you know don't meet your expectations for partnership. Or you might find things that are objectively safe triggering because your body has learned to either like tune up or tune down your danger sensor. And connection in particular can really incite pain in us because it draws us out of the dissociation of like the ways that we might have dissociated or suppressed some of those past traumatic experiences. It's sort of like, whoa, like here comes this again. And the implicit knowing that is in there and the procedural like process memory that happens afterward can mean that when we are safe enough, maybe we're in conflict with someone, but it's not somebody who's going to cause us harm, we might avoid and run away from the situation or reject them before we can be rejected ourselves. Or in order to stay in connection, we might do anything to to appease somebody else or just sort of like stay out of their way so that we don't get further harmed. So assessing for safe enough is really seeing if you can take a step back and notice if there are any like true imminent threats to your safety. And if there aren't, then maybe it's a safe enough zone that you can, you're going to feel uncomfortable and concerned, but you are capable of seeing it through. And this is where building in more choice into our bodies and building a sense of self-trust that I'm always going on and on about is really important. It's like asking ourselves, do I feel capable of taking this on? Do I have the means to remove myself from the situation if I do sense danger? Right? If I have enough choice and agency to remove myself from a situation if it gets dangerous, great. If I feel capable of sitting in that zone of discomfort, right? And trusting myself that I can handle the emotions that come up, right? There's like self-trust there. And when you're in the safe enough zone, your body is and should be actively assessing the situation. And it's helpful, if possible, to work on being in that zone from a grounded and aware space, right? This is that like sort of pause and step back or zoom out, which is difficult again because the possibility of danger just naturally pulls our body into a defensive state. But when we know that we are safe enough, we can assess for danger, but we also are assessing for the possibility of positive things like joy, love, connection, growth, growing through conflict. And again, all of this comes in practice. But again, pausing is really important. And you can do something like closing your eyes to check in with yourself. You can say out loud, hey, give me a moment to think about that, or hold on, let me gather my thoughts here. You can remove yourself from the situation. My favorite getaway is actually the bathroom. Excuse yourself and take the time you need before returning. And something that I do with clients in session is we get in relationship with the parts of us who are coming up and that are feeling unsafe or scared or worried. And we really start to wonder between you and this part, how do you want me to be with you when we feel scared in this way? We get to know, what are you afraid of? What gets better for me when you show up? And what would help you trust me to be in that safe enough zone before fighting or flighting or freezing or appeasing? The other thing is, if you are assessing that the person or the environment that you're in isn't going to give you that space or time, they question you or they pressure you, they are encroaching on your choices, then that is potentially very well a red flag. This kind of data is confirming that your boundaries aren't being respected, right? And so that is pretty clear data that, yep, need to remove myself from this situation. So I've mostly talked about, like how do you discern when you are triggered? And then here just at the end, I've mentioned a little bit of like, yep, this is a red flag, right? And I think the red flag really comes down to, again, like how much choice and agency is that other person or situation offering you? And then what I want to say too is that it can be both. It can be a red flag and you can be triggered by it, right? It's not an either or situation necessarily. So if you get triggered, that doesn't always mean that your response is incongruent to the situation. It can be wisdom from your body protecting you. And if you do get triggered and the situation is actually safe and it's not a red flag, that's also okay. That's also really amazing that your body is looking out for you in that way. And real strong relationships will have some grace for you to kind of have your moment and then return. And whether that is that you return and you're looking for clarity so that you can really settle yourself. Hey, what did you mean when you said that? Or whether it's that you return with the clarity of, hey, I'm so sorry I got triggered when you said that, right? Like real relationships, real belonging allows for us to be human and imperfect and dysregulated sometimes. So, in last week's podcast, I shared how there's this new component of my coaching program, which is a belonging project, which could be a lot of different things, whether personal, professional, related to friendships, family, dating, community, political spaces. And I want to name that if this is a question that you find yourself struggling with a lot, this could be part of your belonging project if we work together. It could be being with the different parts of you who struggle to make this discernment. It could be showing up more vulnerably in your relationships by sharing with them about the parts of you who get triggered, or moving through if you're in a relationship that is experiencing a lot of conflict, but that you really want to try to maintain that relationship. It could be that I support you in moving through that conflict in a way where you feel embodied and safe enough, and you can trust yourself, and you can see the potential of like what can happen when you move through conflict with someone, the intimacy that can come from that. So as always, feel free to DM me, email me with whatever questions or comments you have. And if you're interested in working together one-on-one on a belonging project, feel free to apply for one-on-one coaching. You'll be able to book a free sales call. That's a 60-minute call where we're going to spend most of the time just talking about what you're struggling with, what you're bringing into coaching, what your hopes and dreams are. And then I'll share with you sort of what the process of us working together would look like what, kind of would be custom to your experience. So excited to hear from you all, and I'll see you next week.